right, how smart are we? Show of hands from an honesty standpoint, is this a little bit like when you get a multiple choice and when you're in doubt, you just guess C? Yeah, maybe? Or are we actually feeling like a C grade's about right? I don't know. Maybe a mix in our audience there. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Smart energy is a big term that covers all manner of things. We're going to talk about things like AI. We've touched on that a little bit already today. We're going to get a bit more into the nitty-gritty. We're going to talk about smart grids, energy storage, transforming how we generate, distribute, and consume power, while also tackling the hurdles that stand in our way. We have a phenomenal panel to do this with. I should say, I cannot do justice to the bios or we'd lose the whole time of our panel actually doing that. So I'm going to give very short, sharp intros, and I'll welcome all the panel out in one hit versus one by one. But I invite you to get in the app and check these people out in their fullness. So my first panelist is Colette Honorable, who is the Executive Vice President of Public Policy and Chief of External Affairs for Exelon Corporation. Incredible background, has been involved, not only now is she at the largest utility in the United States, but she's also is unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate to serve as the Commissioner at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So we've got incredible regulatory pedigree there. Joining Colette is Darryl Willis, who heads up all things energy and resources for Microsoft, Corporate Vice President there, leads a team responsible for empowering mining, oil and gas, power and utilities customers to achieve more through the power of Microsoft's cloud and AI, oversees a range of innovative industry solutions and fosters executive relationships across the board. Our third panelist is Nicole Janssen, the co-founder and co-CEO of AltaML. She's an established entrepreneur and recognised leader in the artificial intelligence space who's got extensive experience across ag, fintech and services, health and energy, driving growth for AltaML. And finally, our fourth panelist is Jason Yosinski, the co-founder and CEO of Windscape AI, a machine learning researcher, co-founder and president of ML Collective, and also a founding member of Uber AI Abs. I told you they were rock stars. Can you join me in giving them a rock star welcome onto stage? Welcome, welcome. Fabulous. Great to have you.
Great to see you.
Great to see you. How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. How you doing? It's so lovely when you finally get to meet people that you've come to know in 2D, in 3D. It's a real treat. So we did a little panel poll. I don't know if you could see the results of the audiences there. We might be able to put them back up on the screen one more time. Because I'm going to come to each of you for an opening remark on the same question, sort of how smart are we and what's the reason you're giving the grade that we are. The results from our audience Slido a moment ago was, as you can see here, C. My joke was, is that the kind of one we guess when we're not quite sure what grade to give, a bit like in the multi-choice back at school.
Absolutely.
But C is sort of winning there, and then we rank downwards. I would say, certainly we're not giving ourselves an F, which is encouraging, but equally, the A grade is pretty low down there as well. So Colette, I might come to you to kick us off. How would you grade us at this moment in time?
I would actually give us a B-.
Okay, I love that you're adding a minus and a plus in. You absolutely can go
yes,
there.
We can do that. Thank you for having me. Thank you to Graham and all the organizers. This is incredible. We've made a lot of progress in the US for certain, and more broadly in North America. We do have a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about the conversation that we'll have here today. The reason I give us a B+ is we have the great foundation to level set and really launch into the deep with AI and data centers. Our notion of reliability in the US, second to none. We're at about 99.95% reliable. We know that's what my peers on the panel need. They need reliable power, they need clean power. We are already on this clean energy transformation journey. We have some of the right policies in place, hence the B-. Now, we have a lot of work to do. As with the transition, the hardest part is going to be the last part. Mm-hmm. We need more policies in place. We need quicker response. I know we're going to hear that from my peers here. But we have the commitment. We have a great foundation. And now we need a little creativity and ingenuity to
so
get us
B-,
there.
kind of ready to launch.
Yes.
Darryl, I'm watching you nod, I'm watching you smile. What's your grade?
I think I would say C plus B minus.
Okay, so you're on the cusp of the same grade.
Yeah,
and why have you given that grade?
On par with Colette. I think that there's an urgency, and the world continues to we need to deliver more energy. We need to make sure it has less emissions, and we need to do it faster. Just as you said, Colette, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's an urgency around the pace. And that's what keeps me up at night. It's just the need to do all three of those things simultaneously. In addition to that, we've got to make sure, particularly across the United States infrastructure, North American infrastructure, I should say, that we continue to attack emissions. Methane emissions in particular, fugitive emissions are a big deal. We've got to continue to make sure we're looking at opportunities to accelerate low carbon and no carbon sources of energy. We've got to continue to make sure we are doing everything we can to integrate distributed energy resources into the system, and again, do it at pace. And finally, nuclear is back in the conversation. We've got to continue to embrace and figure out how to integrate nuclear energy into this journey as well, because it is going to be important. So still a lot of work to do.
Still a lot of work to do. Nicole, add in, what grade would you give and why?
I am going to break the trend a bit. I'm putting us at a D+.
Ooh, okay.
Hard grader.
Yeah, tough marker.
I just say it how it is. I think for me, what I see is, while we have a great foundation, like you said, Colette, we've got the data, we've got the will, we've got the talent, we don't have the adoption. There's so much fear around AI, and the pace of adoption is dismal. When I look at China and India and the UAE, they are just pummeling us when it comes to adoption. Just anecdotally, our sales cycle, we work with organizations across North America on building custom AI solutions. Our sales cycle in Canada is 18 months. Our sales cycle in the States is 4 months. Our sales cycle for the few things that we've done in the UAE is a couple weeks. That just tells you how slow we are to look and consider this technology.
All right, Jason, bring us home. What's your thought? I'm watching you nod a number of times, particularly when we talked about tackling emissions, when Darryl was saying that. What's your grade?
Yeah, thanks. First, really happy to be here. I guess I'll break. I was going to say B+, but I'll say A- just to be arbitrarily
okay, we've got a really
positive.
good spread.
Congratulations, everyone. Like everyone said, I won't repeat all the points, but our grid and much of our energy use is still fairly dirty, fairly polluting. We have a long way to go. We might take heart. We might be surprised and encouraged by the fact that solar, wind, and batteries have all just gotten much cheaper in the last 5-10 years. We could have ended up in a very different situation. We could be facing a situation where it would cost us 10x to build the clean grid that we all want. But actually, the technology's kind of arrived maybe just in time, maybe 10 years too late to be just in time. But it gives me a lot of hope. All we have to do now is coordinate, get our act together, actually build the stuff, execute.
Okay, so a real span of grades there. I want to talk a little bit, before we get into opportunities, about how we overcome the challenges. So Colette, I might come to something you talked about first, which is the piece around the policy settings.
Yes.
And what do we need to do on that front? The regulatory environment, we hear it critiqued a lot. We hear government often described as the roadblock, regulatory difficulty, permitting hurdles, etc. What needs to change on the government side of things to unlock that potential? When you describe those policy settings, what would that look like?
Holly, thank you for the question, because it gives me an opportunity to acknowledge Nicole's points about the need for speed in this work. And let me level set too. I am a glass half full person. I'll tell you first of all, we have done quite a bit. If you look at our work in the US, particularly in this administration with the passage of the IRA, which I would say is the envy of many places around the world. The work with regard to the bipartisan infrastructure law, CHIPS, and other pieces of federal legislation, while we don't have a national energy policy, that's a challenge for us, I own that. We've made great strides, so we're seeing tremendous investment in infrastructure, incentives in terms of taxes, investment in R&D, and loan programs and grants at a scale that we've never seen. So this is really an historic level of investment. And you pair that with what's happening at the state level. I'm at Exelon, we're the nation's largest utility, as Holly said. In a number of our states, our state legislatures are also pairing that with state incentives to lure companies like these to their jurisdictions. Even with all of that, we need greater and more timely permitting reforms. I say that as a former regulator. We need that now. And so the drafts and the bills that we're seeing in Congress today are promising. We need more work. At FERC, they have just issued Order 1920, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, really focused on transmission siting reform. That's good. We need more of it. We didn't get far enough. And then Order 2023 at FERC focused on interconnection queue reform. We're trying to bring on tremendous amounts of load throughout the U.S. At the same time, we're undergoing something called the energy transition. So we need to drive the more fossil-intensive energy sources out. At the same time, we need more clean energy sources, but we've got to make that connect. And the policymaker and the regulator are two very critical roles to making this happen.
Jason, I want to come to you on that, because we were talking the other day about sort of the technological and equally the policy challenge of getting 100% renewable powered grid. You just talk us through overcoming that challenge. What does that look like in terms of the next wave of progress needed?
Yeah, for sure. First, I think, obviously, I don't have all the answers. Colette and I ran into each other backstage, and I think she said...
Have you solved half of them together?
Sorry?
Solved half of the challenges together? With that
Yeah.
chat?
She said, oh, so you guys have all the answers, right? The AI people. And I said, oh, actually, if the data's there, the models will kind of work. But I thought, the regulatory side was the hard part. I thought you guys had all the answers.
And then I said, if we get together, we can take over the world.
And I think the right answer is actually, not even jokingly, a bit in that direction, right?
Yeah.
You look at the interconnect queues. My understanding of why some of these parts take so long is the modeling piece. If we used AI and machine learning to do some of the modeling of the grid and of the interconnection process, we could probably speed that up a lot, but it's not possible. There are not companies really stepping up to do this, as far as I know, in the US and in Canada. There's a project called Tapestry out of Google X, or Alphabet X maybe. I've heard, made pretty good strides in this direction, but they've gone to work with Chile because their government is more receptive to these newer kind of modeling ideas.
Darryl, I want to come to you. You spoke about we've got work to do.
Yes.
So this public-private partnership piece, so we've talked about policy settings, that interplay and that interconnectedness between industry and policymakers. From the industry side of things, how does that need to work differently? What step change do we need in public-private partnerships to see a greater scaling, a greater number, and certainly sort of the nature of pace that can support the ambitious targets we've got?
I would say a couple of things. I think the first one is that partnership is an easy word to use, but truly being open to forming unusual partnerships, big companies with small companies and medium companies, energy companies and utilities like Exelon and others being willing to partner with a company like Microsoft. These are not usual type relationships, and they're going to be so important.
Why don't we see more of them, Darryl? Why don't we see more unusual partnerships? I love that phrase. What's the barrier?
I think it's just been tradition and fear. But in order to solve the problems that we have today, they're going to be required because of the need for everyone to bring their expertise to the table. Microsoft is one of our expertises is cloud and generative AI now and security. We never want to be a utility, but we need the resources and the services of an Exelon. And so us knowing what our strengths are and being able to work with Colette's company and figure out what their strengths are and bring those together to make 1 + 1 = 11 is what we're trying to do, and to do it at pace. The last thing I'd say is this thing about speed is so important. So the partnerships and then the acceleration of those partnerships is absolutely important. If you think about what's happening with generative AI, and just to put a fine point behind what the panel has said, it took about 16 years for there to be 100 million users of a cell phone. It took about 7 years for there to be 100 million users of the internet. It took 4.5 years for there to be 100 million users of Facebook. It took 3 months for there to be 100 million users of ChatGPT. So that puts a fine point on this notion of velocity and the importance of it.
Absolutely. It gives you a scale for those of you who feel tired. You've got a sense of just how fast that pace of change is relative to what we might have seen previously with technological advancement and adoption, and links back to what we heard Jeff saying this morning around, even the anticipation that this AI race will be won within the next 5 years. It's just extraordinary how quickly things are scaling. Nicole, I want to come to you on AI because you sort of talked about the implementation piece, and it strikes me something that is at the intersection of both the energy transition but equally AI is this trust component. Sana Marin talked a lot on our stage this morning about trust and the importance of bringing people along for the journey. How do we approach that? What are the ingredients for successfully garnering that trust?
I think it comes down to a lot of the principles you see in responsible AI. So transparency. Everybody who is interacting with AI should know they're interacting with AI. Explainability. Do we know why this model is making this particular prediction? Is it making that prediction because I have brown hair? Well, that's a problem. Then I'm not going to follow that prediction. But we build a lot of our models where it shows this is our prediction, and here are the top 3 factors why the model believes that's the prediction. And that helps build that trust. We also look at things like after the prediction's been made, and many times you have the opportunity down the road to see what ground truth becomes, and then comparing it back and always looking back to say, did that model make that correct prediction? And if it didn't, let's take a look at that model. So a lot of these are the principles that align within responsible AI, and I think as long as we all start leaning into responsible AI and those principles, I think we'll garner that trust over time.
Speaking of responsibility, Colette, I want to come to you on something that we touched on a little bit in our geopolitical panel earlier, which is just this anticipation of the energy demands of AI.
Yeah.
And how really it is a race for the lowest cost of compute. There is a belief, and this was certainly what Jeff Navin said, around the lack of confidence that maybe some of the bigger technology companies have in utilities as they are right now to be able to meet that need. And so increasingly okay, we're going to have to do it ourselves. We're going to have to go it alone when it comes to generating our own energy solutions in that regard. I just want to play the downstream consequences of that, of this increasing sort of privatization, potentially of energy resources, and the fact some of our largest energy generators could potentially be private companies. Can you talk me through some of the emerging vulnerabilities that we might need to think about? Because I think you've got a really unique perspective on that as a former regulator.
Absolutely, and I was joking with Holly backstage. They've let the fox in the hen house by letting me in at Exelon. And we've stood up a team specifically to deal with this, and it sits within my remit at Exelon. We have to do this work quickly, but we have to do it well and right. And I want to touch on just a few quick aspects. One, ensuring reliability. So when I was bragging a moment ago about our percentage of reliability in the US being 99.95%, that's because of a lot of hard work over 100 years to make it so. With mandatory reliability standards. Its work is highly complex, it's highly technical. There's a lot that has to work right behind the scenes over and over and over for you to flip the switch, for us to have these fabulous lights and this amazing smoke. I've never been in a panel with this happening. I feel like a rock star. But then, so we got to stay focused on reliability. That means certain people doing this work who know about interoperability. There are a lot of smart people in this room and doing the work on the AI side, but we need to honor the past. It's what's gotten us to where we are, number one. Number two is focusing on affordability. Across our footprint, we will see 6 gigawatts of high probability load in the next 5 years. That means folks who have put money down for studies with us or who have purchased property. They are real and serious folks like these on the stage. So if that 6 gigawatts is something akin to 6 nuclear units. Now, I applaud the work that Microsoft and our cousins at Constellation are undertaking to revive a nuclear unit that wasn't in force. But we have to do that work thoughtfully because we support 10.5 million customers, every single one. So we have to ensure reliability for them. We have to ensure affordability for them. And then there's a third element that we have to think about, and that is equity. We talk about being equitable, treating all customers well. We talk about a just transition. This gets very real once you run this out. And how are we ensuring that every single customer, every single consumer can participate in the energy transition? How do we make sure that they can bear the transition? So we still are committed to these goals. We have a path to clean at Exelon, and we are working on what happens after the path to clean, but we've got to stay focused so we can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I saw those dancers. They were something else, Graham. I wanted to get in on it and run out here early.
We can arrange that later, don't worry.
But reliability, affordability, and equity. Thank you.
Darryl, I want to bring you in here because you sort of mentioned, and one of the challenges I'm grappling with on behalf of industry is this piece around companies like Microsoft who've got incredibly strong commitments from a net zero standpoint, and then obviously are at the forefront of AI and just balancing that act. I mean, mentioned there your 3 Mile Island project. Do you want to talk a little bit more about nuclear and its role in thinking through a company like Microsoft's solution here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a couple of words, actually. The first one is that we made in 2020 actually, we made commitments around by 2025 running all of our operations and all of our data centers on renewable energy by the end of 2025. In addition to that, we said that by 2030 we would be net zero. We went even further and said that by 2050 we will take all of the carbon out of the atmosphere that we put in the atmosphere since the founding of Microsoft. That was all before the advent of ChatGPT and generative AI and what we call at Microsoft copilots. And in spite of, and the energy demands, as Colette said, have gone up quite a bit, and it will continue to go up. And in spite of those challenges, we are still committed to those ambitions by 2025, 2030, and 2050, respectively, because we believe that AI is, much as it is a part of the challenge we're facing now around energy demand that I believe we can solve with the folks on this stage, we also believe that AI is a part of the solution when it comes to energy resource management, when it comes to the integration of infrastructure with things like wind, solar, EVs, and battery storage, when it comes to water utilization associated with data centers. I believe that generative AI will solve way more problems than it creates, not only for the energy sector, which is a sector that is known for doing hard things and doing them well. I think we'll only be able to do them better, in particular as we see AI not as a replacement for expertise, but an assistant to complement expertise. We will be able to solve any problem. I think we're in a period of time that every problem on the planet that we can envision, through partnership and through generative AI and expertise, we can solve it, including the energy transition and making sure people have access to heat, light, mobility, making sure it's affordable, as Colette said, and making sure it's just.
I'm loving the optimism on this panel. After anyone who sat through geopolitics this morning, it's really changed my mood around, so I'm thrilled about this. Jason, I'm watching you nod a lot. Speaking of solutions, I mean, what Darryl was describing there speaks beautifully to what you're doing at Windscape AI, which is really leveraging, revolutionizing, I should say, renewable energy forecasting. Talk to us about AI's role in this, because it's a great example of what Darryl's talking about. It has the potential to solve more than potentially the challenges it will create. Talk to us about what you're doing around predictability and integration, specifically of intermittent energy sources.
Well, first, I'm curious, are we any of us thinking of upgrading our ratings from the C's, B's?
Yeah.
Sounds like we're pretty optimistic. Like you say, there's a lot of possibility
Good
for
luck pulling me up.
Say, don't worry about it. I'm good.
Sorry. There's a ton of possibility for smarter modeling of the grid and smarter modeling of systems like weather that feed into the grid and end up driving a lot of factors. I want to emphasize first, the possibility. So if we can model the grid, if we can model when it will be sunny, when it will be windy, when you should be charging or discharging your batteries, when you might want to dispatch your very expensive loads to data centers, we can make everything more efficient. Not quite for free, but kind of without extra carbon emissions associated with the process. We can just be a bit smarter. It can also be a bit cheaper, right? We're faced with, in the US, $1 trillion or more bill to build out the grid infrastructure that we need. In addition to that huge cost, it's going to come with a ton of time to upgrade our transmission and distribution infrastructure. If instead we use the existing power lines we have as smartly as we can, we still need to build out, but we can accelerate that process, and we can do more with less. We can do more, have more renewables on the grid with less total investment. One thing we work on is with forecasting weather. So it turns out, since the 1950s or so, organizations like NOAA in the US and other organizations around the world have forecast weather using physics and supercomputers. Very expensive machines to run. Really only the purvey of governments around the world to run these expensive models. A couple years ago, a few different groups showed that you can just train a big neural network. You can give it all the historical weather data we've ever measured. You can say, here's how the world tends to evolve, and you show it a video of kind of wind swirling around the planet and sun moving and everything, clouds moving, hurricanes starting and stopping. And that neural network will learn how to forecast the weather. It'll learn on all these different atmospheric layers how the air tends to move, how atmospheric rivers move, carrying moisture to the poles and back and everything. I'm not a meteorologist, but I find it kind of fascinating.
It's incredible. Pretty good.
And the amazing thing is it works, right? We can run these models. They're something like 10 to 50,000 times cheaper than running a supercomputer. So here's an example of AI where the AI is actually much cheaper to run than the old school model. Based on this, there's a ton of possibility to make the grid smarter. Again, tell people exactly when to dispatch, exactly how much sun or wind they're going to experience. I'm going to put in a request for the world, I guess.
Please.
One thing that has enabled this fundamental research and amazing progress has been the open data available from organizations like NOAA in the US. If you give ML people access to the data, they can often do amazing things. If they don't have access to the data, it's often hard to do what we want to do. And this is where I'll make a pitch for just making data open whenever we can, whether that's by regulation or by private companies choosing how to act. We work with a lot of folks that own and operate wind turbines. When we have data from those turbines, we can do amazing things in terms of modeling their production and making them more efficient. When that data is locked up by, for example, the manufacturers of the turbines, and they don't let people downstream see it, we're blocked from doing our best work. Our customers are blocked from monetizing their assets the best way, and so on.
So Jason's gotten beautifully there into something I want to come to all the panelists on, which is what's something that could make you increase your grade, whatever you started us with, what would be, and so there I'm hearing the call out around open quality data would change the machine learning game fundamentally, and that would allow predictive patterns and forecasting to revolutionize. Nicole, I'm going to come to you. What would be something, or what is something you're already seeing? It could be an existing point of light you're encouraged by that would see you increase your grade. I know it's stubborn, this grade that you've given, but if we were to move it up a little bit, what would nudge it?
I am known for my stubbornness. I would say I want to see companies, particularly in North America, going beyond the education phase. We're all ready to educate our boards, educate our executives, but we're really hesitant to go any further than that. And we need to do that. The impact that we could have with AI, and this is the other fallacy that I've heard people say, is there isn't one use case that's going to revolutionize a business. There is 100 use cases within every organization that is going to revolutionize your business. And so you have to create an organization that is AI forward. And that takes time. It does start with education, but it also means starting to work on it, not just educating and thinking about it.
So I hear education plus experimentation there.
Yes.
Like how do we build a culture with a healthy kind of proclivity towards having a go? Darryl, what would you add to the mix? What would nudge your grade higher?
I think the thing that would cause me to bump my grade up would be would really be partnership. When I think about the fact that if our company, if Microsoft shows up with any one of the companies represented here and present ourselves to a customer, partner, or a community, it creates a certain amount of confidence that causes people to want to follow. And I think that will create acceleration and momentum. So for me, it's all about partnership and us showing up together and trying to solve one or two very difficult problems, not trying to boil the ocean, but just picking one or two problems that will do some good around the cost of energy, the reliability of energy, and also the equity and parity associated with it.
And so just to ask a quick follow-up there, is the piece really around that problem selection that you talked about? So picking the right problems that are ripe for partnership, or is there something else we need to do to catalyze the sorts of partnerships you're talking about?
I think it's around the pace of having the courage to create the partnership and then to do something other than make a bunch of PowerPoint slides, although I like PowerPoint. I mean, just get into action and just turn words into action.
You're speaking my language right
Yeah,
now.
it's that the bias has to be for action and not for generating slides and writing papers.
Yeah, I love that.
I don't
Goodbye
know
to
if I should have said
PowerPoints.
that, actually, but-
Also, this beautiful connection to what Sana Marin talked about this morning around hope in action and just how much we breed optimism by virtue of taking action. Colette, I'd love you to bring us home. What would be something that would nudge your grade higher?
Thank you. So, Holly, we've talked about regulatory lag. Could I set that one aside? That is one. Solving for the supply chain constraints. And it's something we haven't touched on much here, but it could move us light years to meeting demand, to moving in the way that this sector needs for us to move. We know you need this power quickly, and we've got the studies underway and so on. But we have to, when we order the equipment, and it doesn't matter if an entity wanted to build their own infrastructure, when you order that equipment, you might not see it for 5 years. And that's unsustainable in this new future. So the supply chain constraints. If we could touch that with a magic wand and no PowerPoints and so on.
And if I gave you that magic wand, what would you point it at? What would you wave it at to change the supply chain side?
Oh, whew. Our CEO was just at the White House talking about this.
Great.
With a number of leaders, a number of you all's heads of office, talking about the need for political and geopolitical solutions. So this problem is bigger than us sitting in this room. Does that make you happy, Nicole? I'm kind of ending on a down note a little bit.
Everyone's trying to please me now.
I don't know if we can, but I'll say this is bigger than us. We can have hopes and dreams and aspirations, but if we don't see these bottlenecks clearing up in terms of the infrastructure that we need, we can't build it.
Absolutely. Well, I don't know about you, but I certainly feel smarter, and I'm very grateful that such smart individuals are so committed to doing this work and driving forward the transformation that we need in the energy system to realise our aspirational targets. Can you join me in thanking our panel, Colette, Darryl, Nicole, and Jason, for a phenomenal conversation? With that, you are off to a networking break. Feel free to mingle. Please keep connecting and keep these wonderful connections of unlike minds going. And can you join me one more time in thanking our fabulous panel for a great conversation?
Thank you. That was terrific.
Thank you so much. That was so great.